Shalom, Israel. Grace and blessings from God, the Father of our Lord Jesus Christ, be unto you. All praises to the Most High that we made another week. Where I'm at in Phoenix, in Mesa, actually, technically, is not quite the Sabbath yet. I just touched down over here to do some work with the brother Malachi over the next couple days. Get out in these streets and bring the word to the people. But like I said, I just got into the hotel and all that kind of stuff. As you can see, it's not even the Sabbath yet here. We got about another, couple hours until the Sabbath. So I haven't even had a chance to prepare for the Sabbath yet. So this is going to be somewhat brief. At the most an hour. You know how we do. I'll try to get an hour in. I don't know if that's going to be the case, but there's a couple things I want to touch on. We do like to stall a little bit for people to come in, but unfortunately, I don't think I have the time. So I'm just going to get into it, not necessarily with the lesson just yet, but with a scripture about traveling, why it's important to travel. I believe this is Sirach 34. Yes, Sirach 34. So I want you to see what it starts with here. I'm start with verse 8, and this is the context of what is about to come next. All right. It says, the law shall be found perfect without lies, and wisdom is perfection to a faithful mouth. All right, but first things first, I do want to check and make sure everything is going smoothly, and then I'll pick up from there. To a faithful mouth. All right, but first, okay, all praises to the Most High. Everything seems to be going smoothly, so praise the Lord for that thing. And I'm gonna start again from, this is the book of Sirach in the Apocrypha, the book of Ecclesiasticus in the Apocrypha, 34 and verse 8. It says, the law shall be found perfect without lies, and wisdom is perfection to a faithful mouth. So that's where it starts. It starts with the laws of God. It starts with the wisdom that God has given us, that is his holy scriptures, that is the Bible. All right. So once you start keeping the laws, and once you start gaining wisdom, it says a man that had traveled knoweth many things. So right, so understand, you have men in the world who travel all over the world to do business, right? You have men in the business world on Wall Street or whatever. They travel to China to do business. They travel to Singapore. They travel to Dubai. They travel to Switzerland, right? These men don't know wisdom. These men can't declare. What did it say right here? They can't declare wisdom. They don't know as many things as the ones who keep the law and travel to spread the gospel. All right. Like the apostles did, like what Paul did. All right. Traveled in many wonderful places. But a man that traveled with the law and with wisdom knows many things. And he that hath much experience will declare wisdom. All right. It says, he that hath no experience knoweth little. Right. So if you just stay in your own community, then what kind of experience do you have? The people there may know you, but you don't have much experience with dealing with all these different types of people in different areas. Right. He said, he that hath no experience knoweth little, but he that hath traveled is full of prudence. He said it right there. So prudence is not only wisdom, it's a synonym for wisdom, but prudence specifically is knowing how to prepare for things that are coming. All right. And if you're from Mississippi, like I am, you know that things hit Mississippi later than they hit other areas. So if like whether it be culture, whether it be technology, whatever the case may be. So if you go to these other areas and you see how things are shaping up in these other areas, and then you come back home and you say, okay, that's coming here. What do I need to do to prepare for those things? What do we need to do to maybe even utilize those things that are coming to our benefit, right? It could be either of those things. But the point is, once you travel, you can understand wisdom and prudence. Verse 11, he said, when I traveled, I saw many things, and I understand more than I can express. You see that right there? So You hear this even with people in the world when they travel. They be like, "Oh, it was so breathtaking. It was so wonderful. I couldn't even put it into words." All right, the scenery was so beautiful. I couldn't even put it into words. That's what he's saying here. He said, "I learned so many things I can't even put it into words." All right. He said, "I was oft times in danger of death, yet I was delivered because of these things, because of the wisdom, because of his understanding and the laws of God." All right. And I'm gonna keep reading through 14. "The spirit of those that fear the Lord shall live, for their hope is in him that saveth them." You see that right there? So you look at Paul, right? And I might as well get this because I mentioned Paul a few times already. So 1 Corinthians 11. I believe it's 1 Corinthians 11. Maybe 2 Corinthians 11. Give me 1 minute to get this pulled up. 1 Corinthians 11. All right. No, this is actually no, that's about breaking bread. This is 2 Corinthians 11. Excuse me. The book of 2 Corinthians, chapter 11. Talking about Paul's travels. All right. Let's start with verse. Yes, let's start with verse. Starting with verse 21. This 2 Corinthians 11 and verse 21. "I speak as concerning reproach, as though we had been weak. Howbeit, wheresoever any is bold, I speak foolishly. I am bold also." He's like, look, I could glory the way that y'all are glorying. All right. "Are they Hebrews? So am I. Are they Israelites? So am I. Are they the seed of Abraham? So am I." He said, look, if y'all want to boast about being an Israelite, he said, look, I can trace my lineage all the way back to Abraham. That's what Paul said. He was a Pharisee of the Pharisees in a former life. All right. "Are they ministers of Christ? I speak as a fool. I am more." He said, look, y'all talking about y'all serving Christ, I serve him more. He said, I know it's a foolish thing to say, but y'all listen to what I've been through. "In labors more abundant, in stripes above measure, in prisons more frequent, in deaths oft," meaning often. He said, look, I done been through all this trying to serve Christ. The people trying to persecute me, the people trying to kill me. "Of the Jews 5 times received I 40 stripes, save one," right? Because it's a law that said you couldn't beat, as a punishment, you couldn't beat anybody more than, 40 times? Yeah, you couldn't beat somebody more than 40 times. That would be cruel punishment. All right, so that's the Jews did 39 times so that they could say, oh, we're not that cruel, right? Said, "Thrice was I beaten with rods. Once was I stoned. Thrice I suffered shipwreck. A night and a day I have been in the deep. In journeyings often." You see that right there? So he was always journeying. He was always journeying to preach the gospel. All right. He was always moving to try to serve the Lord. And in all these things, the Lord delivered him. Out of all these things, the Lord delivered him. All right. "In journeyings often, in perils of waters, and perils of robbers, in perils by my own countrymen, in perils by the heathen," right? So he would, the Jews would persecute him, and the Romans, the Greeks would persecute him as well. "In perils in the city, in perils in the wilderness, in perils in the sea, in perils among false brethren." So even within the church, you would have men who would turn against Paul and persecute him. "In weariness and painfulness, in watchings often, in hunger and in thirst, in fastings often, in cold and nakedness, besides those things that are without, that which come upon me daily, the care of all the churches." You see that right there? So that's why he was traveling. He was traveling to care for the churches. All right. And we know, according to the scriptures, the churches are not the buildings. The churches are the people. All right. The people in the different areas. All right. He ain't talking about like I was doing masonry work. That's not what he's talking about. He's talking about, look, I was trying to provide for the people. All right. So we went there because of what it says right here in Ecclesiasticus in the Apocrypha 34 and verse 13. It says, "The spirit of those that fear the Lord shall live, for their hope is in him that saveth them." Paul was saved out of all those things. All right. Obviously, he was writing that while he was still alive. He said, "Whoso feareth the Lord shall not fear nor be afraid. You see that right there? So Kanye West recently did a interview with Big Boy, talking about, oh, it's wrong to fear God because the fear of God leads to other fears. He don't know what he's talking about. All right, he don't know what the fear of God is, first and foremost, and secondly, excuse me one second, and secondly, once you fear God, as it says right here, whoso feareth the Lord shall not fear nor be afraid, for he is his hope. That eliminates all other fears. All other fears that you have, if you fear God, that supersedes everything, because you know you're in the hands of God. You know, why should I fear what do people fear? Why should I fear heights when I know that the Lord has me at any height or depth? Why would I fear the ocean? Because some people fear the ocean when God is the one who's controlling the waves, right? Why should I fear terrorism when I know God is in the hearts of all men? You see what I'm saying? Why should I fear the king? Why should I fear the president if I know that God, again, controls the hearts of men? So if you fear God, that leaves all other fears behind. God did not give you the spirit of fear to be paranoid about all these things. All right? The spirit of the Lord, the spirit of the fear of the Lord is discipline. All right? Being afraid of God's judgment. So you make yourself strict. You walk that narrow path, so to speak. All right? So from there. Actually, we'll read through 16. It said, blessed is the soul of him that feareth the Lord. To whom doth he look, and who is his strength? Right? We look unto the Lord. For the eyes of the Lord are upon them that love him. He is their mighty protection and strong stay, a defense from heat, and a cover from the sun at noon, a preservation from stumbling, and a help from falling. So God is going to be with you if you travel, again, with the law and with wisdom. Build yourself up in the law, build yourself up in the wisdom. God will be with you wherever you go. All right. So that wasn't even really the main thing that I wanted to get into this week. The main thing I want to get into this week is I know people have been talking about the raid at Diddy's homes, right? But also there was a documentary come out here recently called Quiet on the Set. All right, that's about the predatory nature of children's television, the predatory nature of the producers on children's TV shows. All right, the people behind the scenes that you don't see on camera, they would prey on the children. They would, R-word the children. They would do pedo stuff to the children. They would, molest them. All right. And Diddy's no different. Diddy brought up Usher when he was like 15 years old, and groomed him to be this huge megastar that he is now, right? Doing the Super Bowl, right? So again, Diddy's no different. And I saw some clips today where there was an interview that Diddy and Justin Bieber did, a couple of interviews that they did when Justin Bieber was still like 15. And you could see it in Justin Bieber's eyes. He didn't want to be around Diddy, but he knew that's what would make his career. And see, that's how these children actors think. That's how these children singers think. They think if they're around these predators like Diddy, like Dan Schneider, like Brian Peck, if they're around these guys, hey, they can make my career. I better do what he says. And then, of course, these monsters take advantage of that. All right. So, what do I want to start with? Well, we talked about how they do this to the children, man. And this is what Christ said about the children in Matthew 18. Because Christ was a strict and austere man, but he had compassion. He had compassion for the people, and especially for the children. All right. Because he saw a lot of potential in the children. The children are not yet corrupted mentally like adults are. All right. The children can still grow up to be whatever they desire. Right. And then in some cases that turns into wickedness, and in most cases, I should say. But in some cases that can turn into a righteous man or woman. Right. But as a child, you don't know yet. You just got to raise them up the right way and see which way they're willing to follow, right? So this is Matthew 18. Matthew 18, starting with 1. He said, at the same time came the disciples unto Jesus, saying, who is the greatest in the kingdom of heaven? Right? So the disciples, all grown men, came to Christ like, oh, no, I'm going to be the greatest. No, I'm going to be the greatest. Christ, who's going to be the greatest in the kingdom? And Jesus called a little child unto him and set him in the midst of them, right? Because people say like 12 disciples. Yeah, Christ had 12 main disciples that he was close with. Christ had hundreds, thousands of followers. And all these people, a lot of these people rather, brought their families so that they could learn as well. So he grabbed, hey, come here, little child. Set him in the midst of them and said, verily I say unto you, except ye be converted and become as little children, ye shall not enter into the kingdom of heaven. All right. And I talked about this before about being converted. So let's talk about being converted. The word conversion itself just means change. All right. But what kind of change is God looking for? All right. He ain't looking for coins, right? He ain't looking for a dime and a nickel. What kind of change is the Lord looking for? What kind of conversion is the Lord looking for from us? It's Psalms 19 and verse 7. It says, the law of the Lord is perfect, converting the soul. So God wants your soul to change, to be more in tune with the law. All right. The testimony of the Lord is sure, making wise the simple. If you were once simple, the law will make you wise. And again, that goes back to what we was reading in Sirach about the law and wisdom. All right. It said, verily I say unto you, except you be converted, except you come back to the law and become as little children, you shall not enter into the kingdom of heaven. So when he says become as little children, what does he mean by that? Verse 4. Whosoever therefore shall humble himself as this little child, the same is the greatest in the kingdom of heaven. So humility is the answer. Humility as children. All right. A child, they're always asking questions. They're not going to pretend like they know everything. All right. They're going to ask questions about things. They're going to try to find out answers to things. They're not, if you sit here and tell a child something, if they ask you a question and you give them an answer, they're not going to question that. They may say, oh, why is that? They may say, why? Well, why is that? And then you can further elaborate. All right. But they're not going to say, no, that's not right, because they don't know. So humble yourself as a little child. Whosoever therefore shall humble himself as this little child, the same is the greatest in the kingdom of heaven. And whoso shall receive such a little child in my name receiveth me. All right. So I know, and I will point out that this is also talking about spiritual children, people who have humbled themselves and have just come into the truth, right? So it's also talking about that. But also, he's talking about literally as well, about how we are supposed to provide and take care of the children, all right? And whoso shall receive such a little child in my name, receive me. But whoso shall offend one of these little ones which believe in me, it were better for him that a millstone were hanged about his neck and that he drowned in the depth of the sea. You see that right there? So people who offend children, people who abuse children, your punishment is going to be worse than if somebody tied a rock around your neck and threw you in the ocean. All right. Believe that thing. And these men that are doing these things, the punishment is just. The judgment is going to be just. I'll put it like that. But all this is coming out. All people have been saying this for years, but everybody was calling, oh, you're a conspiracy theorist and you're this, you're that. You're crazy if you think Diddy is doing this to these little boys. You're crazy if you think people in Hollywood on children's that work on children's shows that they're actually, abusing these children. But it's all coming out. It's all being brought to the light. All right. This is Luke 8. I believe it's Luke 8 and 17, if I'm not mistaken. Yes. This is Luke 8 and 17. Understand this thing. Believe this thing. For nothing is secret that shall not be made manifest. You see that right there? Neither anything hid that shall not be known and come abroad. You see that right there? So everything's going to be brought to the light. Everything that you've ever done secretly, everything that I've ever done secretly, everything that everyone has done, all the evil that everyone has done secretly, even the good things that people have been done secretly, all that's going to be brought to the light. Everything, there's not any secrets that will remain secrets. All right, everything's going to be brought to the light. So it's best to not even do those secret wicked things, because it's all going to be made manifest. It's all going to be brought to the light. All right. So let's touch on this real quick, because I'm specifically talking about Diddy and the Quiet on the Set documentary. As far as like, those were mainly about these grown men touching little boys. That's mainly what that was about. Diddy, he's been charged with sex trafficking of I don't know if it's of minors. I haven't looked into all the details. I just know his homes got raided because the FBI has been looking into him for a while, and you know they found sufficient evidence to raid his homes. So I don't know if Diddy was doing this to little girls as well. I'm not quite sure, but definitely to little boys. You can just tell by what's been going on with Usher and Justin Bieber, and how Diddy was brought up. He was groomed by the Capitol Records label manager before him. But anyway, Deuteronomy 23 and verse 17. Understand this. This is how we keep any of this from spreading. All right. This is how we keep any of this sexual perversion from occurring. This is Deuteronomy 23 and 17. There shall be no whore of the daughters of Israel, nor a sodomite of the sons of Israel. You see that right there? So you wouldn't be wanting to touch little boys if you wasn't messing around with grown men. If you knew it was a law against messing around with men in general, you know it's not a law. I mean, you know it's a law to not mess around with little boys. It's the same thing with there shall be no whore of the daughters of Israel. If you know that you're not supposed to make these grown women whores, then you obviously know it's not all right to touch a little girl. But again, these people don't follow the law. They don't care about what the word of God says. They just do anything that they feel like doing. And that is very wicked, very evil. And if we would cut it off at the source here, hey, stop that sexual perversion where it starts, which is between grown men and women who are consenting adults but having sex outside of marriage. Anything that's done outside of marriage leads to everything done outside of marriage. People don't understand that. All right. And here's another law basically saying the same thing, but it uses some verbiage that's really key. This is Leviticus 19 and verse I'll read verse 29. It says, do not prostitute thy daughter to cause her to be a whore. So you think about this literally, where it's telling the fathers, don't sell your daughter, right, into prostitution. But it's also not that black and white as well, right? Like if you let your daughter do A, B, and C, you don't keep her strict in the laws of God. Now she's running around here being a whore. You have caused your daughter to be a whore, right? And look at this next part. It said, lest the land fall to whoredom and the land become full of wickedness. That's America. The land has fell to whoredom, right? Sex sells and all the advertisements and the movies, TV shows pushing a certain agenda. All right, they started this way back in the day with the women in pants. Now the women wearing tight pants, wearing leggings, wearing booty shorts. The land is full of whoredom. All right. So people think it's okay to just be, sexually liberated, quote unquote. And now they doing it with the kids and stuff too. All right. The land has become full of wickedness. All right. Let's get some more on this. Let's go, we can go Ephesians 5. This specifically uses some specific words that I want to touch on. All right. Yeah, let's start with verse 1. Ephesians 5 and verse 1. It says, be ye therefore followers of God as dear children. You see that right there? So it goes back to, we got to humble ourselves like the little children, and walk in love as Christ also hath loved us, and hath given himself for us, an offering and a sacrifice to God for a sweet smelling savor. Right? So walk as Christ walked, which is never sinning. That's what we're supposed to do. But fornication, you see that right there? Fornication is any sex outside of marriage. All right, that's fornication. You read about a complete list in Leviticus 18. I don't think we're necessarily going to get into all of Leviticus 18, but all of that is fornication. All that's in Leviticus 18 is fornication. And all uncleanness, that's unclean. Unclean to be doing the things that Diddy and Brian Peck and Dan Schneider and them have been doing. All right, it's unclean. It's not right. It's not holy. It said, or covetousness. Covetousness is wanting things that other people have, desiring things that other people have. All right. Let it not be once named among you as becometh saints. He said, look, don't let none of this stuff be found among people who call themselves saints, people who call themselves followers of God, people who call themselves worshipers of God, followers of Christ. Don't let any of this stuff be found among you. Neither filthiness. You see that right there? So filthiness, that's filthy. The things that they've been doing. All right? The things that them children's show television producers been doing to them kids. That's filthy. Thing that Diddy been doing to them little boys and sex trafficking, all this and that. It's filthy. You can throw Vince McMahon in there too. He's being investigated on sex trafficking. All these people that's in positions of power use that power to do filthiness. All right. He said, nor foolish talking, nor jesting, right? Because they'll say something in a joke that's quote unquote a joke, but it's really like perverted. They'll say something perverted and say, man, that was just a joke. I'm just joking around. God said, don't do that. I don't know if y'all recall, but I think it was in 2015, the gay marriage thing was passed in the United States. And all before then, the maybe a full decade before then, in movies and TV shows, and especially the 5 years before then, right? So from like 2010 to 2015, the movies and TV shows were always joking about gay stuff. It's just like gay stuff, non-stop. Like, oh, isn't it funny how they're gay? Like that's what they would do. And see, that's one of the subliminal tactics that they use in Hollywood, is that if we can get them to joke about it, if we can get them to jest about it, then they'll accept it. All right. So that's why God said, nor jesting. Paul also said, evil communication corrupt good manners. So understand that thing. He said, which are not convenient. Right? Jesting is not convenient. You end up going too far with a joke. All right. That's one thing to, laugh and joke around, but jesting about the filthiness or the sin, that's not convenient. Or even like, dogging somebody hard, like roasting somebody hard. Right? That's not convenient. You're going to hurt somebody's feelings. That's not right. All right. But rather giving of thanks. Right? So thank God. Like, you ain't got to be joking about sin all the time. Just say, thank God. Thank God we here. Thank God we made it. All praises to the Most High. All right. So Paul is letting us know how to correct our behaviors, our conversation, is by, instead of jesting about things that are not convenient, about sinful things, give thanks to God. So instead of using these phrases, use these phrases. Say thank God. Say hallelujah. All right. For this ye know, that no whoremonger, a whoremonger is a man who has sex with a lot of women. That's a whoremonger. He said, for this ye know, that no whoremonger, nor unclean person, he said all uncleanness. All right. No whoremonger, nor unclean person, nor covetous man, who is an idolater. right? Because once you covet something enough, it becomes your God. Because the Most High said, thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's wife. Thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's ox or his ass, his house, right? But you'll throw all that away to commit adultery, right? Or to steal something, right? He said, a covetous man is an idolater. Let me read this verse 5 again. He said, for this ye know, that no whoremonger, or nor unclean person, nor covetous man who is an idolater hath any inheritance in the kingdom of Christ and of God. You see that right there? He said, look, you know that ain't none of these sinners getting to the kingdom. That's what he's saying here. If you sinning, you ain't getting the kingdom. All right. And I will read down through verse 7. Let no man deceive you with vain words, for because of these things cometh the wrath of God upon the children of disobedience. All right, so because of all these sins, God's going to judge these people for it. God's going to judge these people for their sins. All right. He said, be not ye partakers with them. Don't go to them Diddy parties like TD Jakes, like Lecrae. Don't go to them Diddy parties. Be not ye therefore partakers with them. All right. So from there, we're already here in the Psalms. Let's go Psalms 10. Trying to think if there's anything else that I want to bring out on this. Not really. I want to touch on Psalms 10 though, because Psalm 10 is heavy, especially when you talk about the wickedness that's here in America. We talked about the land falling to whoredom. Oh yeah, we'll touch on something else in the New Testament real quick. All the spirits, because I touched on the in Deuteronomy 23 and 17, where that's the root. The root problem is the whores and the sodomites in Israel, amongst the Israelites. That's the problem. All right. So let's start with yes, let's start with verse 21 here in Romans 1. Romans 1, and starting with verse 21, because this is all the spirits that come with all that stuff, with the whoredom and with the sodomite, or sodomy, I should say. Romans 1, starting with verse 21. Because that when they knew God, they glorified him not as God, neither were they thankful. So that goes all the way back to our forefathers in the wilderness. They were not thankful. They didn't thank God. They served a calf, right? And then our forefathers later on served Baalim, which is many different versions of Baal, many gods of the Canaanites and gods of everyone else, instead of the God of Israel, the Holy One of Israel, our Father. All right. Neither were thankful, but became vain in their imaginations, and their foolish heart was darkened. You see that right there? So darkened as in darkened in understanding. They had no understanding of the scriptures. They had no understanding of the world around them, because they didn't abide by the scriptures. All right. They didn't keep the laws. Professing themselves to be wise, they became fools. You see that right there? As soon as somebody talking about I'm not and me and Mac been talking about this here recently, when people talking about I'm not religious, I'm spiritual. You hear somebody say that, you need to run. All right? Because that means they the devil. They think that they're wise. They think that they are wise, but they are fools. All right? And changed the glory of the uncorruptible God into an image made like to corruptible man, and to birds, and to four-footed beasts, and creeping things. They made idols. All right? And that big idol today that people serve, white Jesus, Caesar Borgia. All right? Idols. Wherefore God also gave them up to uncleanness through the lust of their own hearts. All right? So Paul is about to delve into some of this uncleanness. All right? To dishonor their own bodies between themselves. You see that right there? That's the root cause of this. All right. Well, first of all, the idolatry. Yes, absolutely. The idolatry and not serving the one true God of heaven and earth. That's really the root. But shortly after that came the whoredom, and the land falling to whoredom and sodomy. who changed the truth of God into a lie and worshiped and served the creature more than the creator, who is blessed forever. Amen. He said that right there. So serve the creator. Do what the Bible says to do, not just your own thing, because at that point you're serving a creature. You say, what did it say? God knows my heart. That's what people say. They say, oh, well, the Bible, I mean, it's not all the way true. I believe that God had sent in my heart and my mind. Why? You made that God up. He can't be real. He can't be. If you serve, well, I like this, but I don't like that. God's moving me to say, reject the Passover, but I'll love it. You made that up. You made up that God. You're serving a creature more than the creator. The creator gave us the Bible, and Christ told us to do every word that's in it, to live by every word of God. So are you going to serve the creature or the creator? For this cause, God gave them up into vile affections. For even their women did change the natural use into that which is against nature, right? So that's women having sex with women is against nature, because that does not produce fruit. It's not fruitful. It does not produce children. It cannot produce children, all right? And likewise also the men, leaving the natural use of the woman, burned in their lust one toward another. You see that right there? So the natural use of the woman is to get married and have children, all right? That's the natural use of the woman. But men left that so that they could have sex with one another, all right? And people in the the queer community, the LGBTQ plus community, be like, well, love is love. Why you hate love? There's nothing wrong with love. The Bible tells men to love other men. It said, love thy neighbor as thyself. The problem is the sex, the sexual, the lust, because the only reason why a man would have sex with another man is for lust. That's all it is, not love. You can love someone without having sex with them. So the only reason why you would go that far is because of your lust. It's not love at that point. It's lust. All right. Lust one toward another. Men with men working that which is unseemly, and receiving in themselves that recompense of their error, which was meat. Right. The STDs, like AIDS. They wonder why AIDS started with, gay people. Is because God gave them a judgment, which was meat, meaning it was right. And even they did not like to retain God in their knowledge. And even as they did not like to retain God in their knowledge, God gave them over to a reprobate mind. You said it right there. So a lot of them people are too far gone. Unfortunately, a lot of the queer people are too far gone because God gave them up to a reprobate mind. Some of them can be reached. We read about that in 1 Corinthians 6. Some of them can be reached, but a lot of them, God give them up to a reprobate mind. They're too far gone to do those things which are not convenient, right? Not convenient. We read about that in Ephesians 5. All right, the sins that are not convenient is the jesting rather that was not convenient about the sin. All right. And specifically with gay people, you got to do all these extra things just to have pleasing sex. You see what I'm saying? It's not the natural use, which is vaginal intercourse with a penis, right? That's what creates babies. That's the natural use. Being filled with all unrighteousness, fornication, wickedness, covetousness, maliciousness. So these are the spirits that are within the queer community. Unrighteousness, first of all, they reject the commandments of God. That's unrighteous. All right. Fornication, that's all kinds of sex without marriage. Wickedness, all sorts of wickedness. That's general term for everything they do. Covetousness, now they're greedy. Now they want other things that other people have, because once you reject one law of God, you're only a few steps away from rejecting all the laws of God. All right. Maliciousness is hatred, full of envy, murder, debate, like argumentative, right? Deceit, which is lies. Malignity is another way of saying maliciousness, meaning just evil, bad things, bad intentions. Whisperers, that's gossiping behind someone's back. And the same thing here, backbiters. Haters of God, right? They say, I don't want to hear none of that Bible stuff, right? despiteful. They do things out of spite. They do things just to get back at others. All right. Proud. What's the motto for the queer community? It's pride. When God said, look, you can't even see the kingdom. You can't even enter into the kingdom unless you humble yourself. They said, no, we don't care about what God says. We're proud of who we are. As soon as you start saying you're proud of who you are, I don't care if you say I'm proud to be an Israelite. I'm proud to be chosen by God. That pride is going to kill you. All right? Understand that thing. Pride comes before destruction. You got to stay humble. You can't be proud. And people say, well, I'm proud of my kids. That's going to get you killed. Don't be proud of your kids. Honor your kids. Love your kids. Be happy for your kids. Don't be proud of them, because that's when you start getting lifted up and you start doing sinful things for your children. That's not right. Anyway, pride is a big spirit within that community. Boasters, inventors of evil things. Man, I ain't gonna tell you to go into the shops, but all these different what was it, like adult stores is what they call them. All these different inventions that they come up just to do these evil things, man. Disobedient to parents, right? Because there's a lot of parents these days will say, well, you can do what you want, but back in the day, and some today, would be ashamed to have a gay child, and they said, no, oh, you're gay, get out of here, you're not welcome here, right? And they don't care. They're disobedient to their parents. Without understanding, covenant breakers, without natural affection. So God give them up to that reprobate mind. They don't even want to come back to the woman at that point. They want to stay that way. All right. Same thing for the lesbians, the women with the women. All right. Implacable, implaceable. Let me look that up, because that's not your typical word there. Implacable. Ooh, unable to be placated, relentless, unstoppable, unforgiving, unpacifiable, unsparing, adamant. These are some key words right here, just so I can see. I'm reading for the list and synonyms here. I like that. Unyielding, unwavering, determined, remorseless, relentless, cruel. Unbending, unforgiving, unmoving. All right, that's implacable, because they get in that reprobate mind and nobody can change them. All right. Unmerciful, who, knowing the judgment of God, that they which commit such things are worthy of death, not only do the same, but have pleasure in them that do them. You see why that's heavy right there? You think everybody in the lands of Sodom, Gomorrah, Admah, Lashan, Zeboim, because it was 5 cities, it was not just 2 that was destroyed, it was 5. Do you think everybody in those cities was gay? No. But everybody was cool with it. So God said, get rid of all them cities. Destroy all of them. They're reprobate mind. They're never going to get right. Get rid of them. All right. So, with that, let's go to Psalms 10. I like Psalms 10 because Psalms 10 specifically is going into the secret sins and things like that. How the wicked do things in secret. All right, like your Diddy, like your Dan Schneider, like your Brian Peck, and there's many more. Those are just a few names that have popped up here in the past week or so. All right, so Psalms 10. I'm gonna start with verse 1. We're probably not gonna read the whole chapter. We're gonna jump around a little bit, but starting with verse 1. He said, "Why standest thou afar off, O Lord? Why hidest thou thyself in times of trouble?" Right? So David in the spirit could see all these things happening, all the wickedness that America is doing, all the wickedness that the world is doing these days. And he said, look, where are you at, God? Why can't you judge the wicked? All right. The wicked in his pride doth persecute the poor. You see that right there? And see, that was the thing with, let's use Diddy for an example. That's the thing with Usher and Bieber. they were talented, but their families were poor. And it's the same thing with child stars, or television stars, I should say. It's the same thing with child actors. They do these things to provide for their family, and their mothers and fathers push them in this direction of being stars because they're poor. So then what do the wicked do? In his pride, he takes advantage of that. Let them be taken in the devices that they have imagined. You see that right there? So now all this wickedness is coming back on their heads. All right. The FBI is cracking down on them. At least visually, at least aesthetically. It appears that way, right? We'll see if any of them actually face any charges. Because the thing about Brian Peck raped Drake Bell, and then he went to jail for a few months, got out, and instead of working at Nickelodeon, he went and worked for Disney Channel. So he really didn't see any judgment from the system. So we'll see if Diddy does. Maybe he will, maybe he won't. But they're going to see judgment from God regardless. All right. For the wicked boasteth of his heart's desire, and blesseth the covetous, whom the Lord abhorreth. You see that right there? So that's what I was just talking about with Brian Peck going to the Disney Channel, man. Getting caught and going to jail for raping a little boy, and then just gets a job over at the other channel, because the wicked don't care what kind of wickedness you're into. They care if you're down with the sickness, essentially, for lack of a better term. You're down with the cause. All right. Let's see. The wicked, through the pride of his countenance, will not seek after God. God is not in all his thoughts. You see that right there? They think they can do whatever, and God will not judge them for it. All right. Verse 9. He lieth in wait secretly as a lion in his den. He lieth in wait to catch the poor. He doth catch the poor when he draweth him into his net. You see that right there? So they take advantage of the poor people. All right. They take advantage of the people who have everything to lose. You see what I'm saying? They'll lose their house. They'll lose their apartment. They'll lose their car if they don't listen to these wicked men and do what they want them to do. All right. Verse 10, he croucheth and humbleth himself, that the poor may fall by his strong ones. You see that right there? So they appear to humble themselves when really it's all a guise. It's all a trick. It's all deceit. They'll act like, oh, I'm just trying to take care of, this young boy. You know what I'm saying? I'm just trying to take care of this young girl. I'm not trying to do anything. It's not sinister in any way. I'm just trying to help out the family. I'm just like a kid myself. That's the type of stuff that they'll say. He had said in his heart, God hath forgotten. He hideth his face. He will never see it. That's what they think. They think God's not going to judge them for their sins. So this is what David said. He said, arise, O Lord, O God. Lift up thy hand. Forget not the humble. Like what Christ said, humble yourself as a little child. David is saying, don't forget the children, O Lord. Look what they've done to the children. Wherefore doth the wicked contemn God? He hath said in his heart, thou wilt not require it. He think he gonna get away with it. That's what they think. But everything done in the dark will be brought to the light. Thou hast seen it. For thou beholdest mischief and spite, to requite it with thy hand. So God sees everything done in behind closed doors. God sees everything that's done in secret. Thou hast seen it. For thou beholdest mischief and spite, to requite it with thy hand. The poor committeth himself unto thee. Thou art the helper of the fatherless. You see that right there? And a lot of these child stars, their father is not in the picture. Or these producers, whether it be in the music world or in the television world, they will remove the father from the scene if they have to. That's what Brian Peck did with Drake Bell. He separated him from his father. Break thou the arm of the wicked and the evil man. Seek out his wickedness till thou find none. So David said, judge him for everything they've ever done. Judge them for everything they've ever done in secret, in the open, behind closed doors, in darkness. Bring it all to the light. Judge them for all of it. The Lord is king forever. The heathen are perished out of his land. All right. So we'll close it out with there. And I'll go to Matthew 26. I hope y'all learned something, man. I still got to get out here prepared for the Sabbath. It's not even the Sabbath yet. We still probably got another hour before then. But yeah. Hey, all praises to the Most High that, I was able to make it out here safely. And all praise to the Most High, all this wickedness is coming out. You know what I'm saying? All this darkness is coming to the light. And yeah, keep that in mind. Everybody's sins going to be found out. God already knows. So, it's all going to be brought to the light eventually at some point. Especially with these high profile men, they can't get away. They can't get away from it because there are actually people looking into it. Not just, God going to expose it. God going to expose everybody's sins, but it's actually people looking into. God puts it in the minds and in the hearts of like reporters and FBI agents to like look into what these high profile men are doing. All right, like Diddy. So Matthew 26, starting with verse 6. Now when Jesus was in Bethany in the house of Simon the leper, there came unto him a woman having an alabaster box of very precious ointment, and poured it on his head as he sat at meat. But when his disciples saw it, they had indignation, saying, to what purpose is this waste? For this ointment might have been sold for much and given to the poor. When Jesus understood it, he said unto them, why trouble ye the woman? For she hath wrought a good work upon me. For ye have the poor always with you, but me ye have not always. For in that she hath poured this ointment on my body, she did it for my burial. Verily, I say unto you, wheresoever this gospel shall be preached in the whole world, there shall also this woman hath done be told for a memorial of her. So praise the Most High for that sister. She did a good work for Christ. She anointed his body for his sacrifice and death. So with that, hey, shalom, Most High in Christ bless. If it's the Sabbath where you at, happy Sabbath. It's not quite here yet, but regardless, let the Lord be magnified.